the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the Life Force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive.
So, I just asked you if you need a moment and then said no, we're going straight in because it's a big subject.
Which you're quite excited about.
I am.
I'm feeling your life force hitting off of me.
I'm like, we've been doing admin all day and I've been like, I want to know.
What would you like to know?
I want to know how your ayahuasca journey was.
What would you like to know? So it's a really hard thing to explain, and just to recap, we talked about it on a previous episode where I had shared that I've been kind of thinking about doing an ayahuasca journey for, I guess, the last year. Even 12 months ago, the thought of it felt quite fearful. It didn't feel quite right, but something happened this year where I thought, no, I do want to do this, and I'm really curious. And so my friend Amy and I, we found an amazing retreat in Spain, just outside Malaga. That was, if you've ever seen the show 9 Perfect Strangers or read the book, it was basically 9 Perfect Strangers.
I've seen and read.
Likewise. And I feel like the easiest way to explain what I was doing before I got there, particularly to my mum, was to say, the film, the series 9 Perfect Strangers. Well, imagine that, except I know I'm being microdosed, and I'm not being microdosed, I'm being overserved.
I'm being overdosed.
I'm being overdosed in the nicest possible way in a very controlled environment. Let's just get that out there right now. But that was the easiest way to kind of explain it. And interestingly, when because I thought,
I love that you told her it was 9 Perfect Strangers intentionally. Yeah. That's brilliant.
Because I was thinking, I mean, let's start there, because when you explain to people that's what you're going to do, you have different reactions, right? So when I was like saying, will I tell my mum, and we were driving, and I thought, will I tell her, will I not tell her, how do I explain this, will she think I'm taking drugs? And so that's when I introduced, the thought of 9 Perfect Strangers. And she said, right, okay, interesting, curious. And so I explained a little bit more about why I was doing it and what it might mean for me.
And what was your why?
What
did you say to your mum?
That I was curious, and I'd been on this lifelong, even though you don't always realize it, lifelong journey of understanding myself, relationships with others, relationships to self, relationships to the universe, oneness, whatever you might want to call it, my place in the world. And I've been doing so much inward thought and reflection that I felt this year I was at the point where I wanted to kind of crack open further. And I'd done it from a very cerebral place to date, where it was like, think logically, be mindful, be a coach, learn these techniques. Breathwork is the first way of kind of opening up that slightly. Some might say yoga and movement is another way you can kind of open up a different kind of thought pattern, or you start to listen to your body and the thoughts that your body are telling you as well as your mind. And I just felt that ayahuasca or exploring psychedelics is something that people are talking about more and more, and they kind of help you tap into that unconscious and subconscious more than kind of logical brain thoughts can. And so I was curious to try it from that perspective. I felt ready to kind of open up what else was there and to kind of peek behind the Wizard of Oz curtain of my brain, and discover what was there. So that was my reason, and my timing for doing it was that I felt strong enough, I felt curious enough, I felt that I had done a lot of the work in unearthing some of the topics and themes that might have been challenging a few years ago, and I felt ready. So when I explained it to Mom and I said, this is what it is, she thought about it and she reflected on the show and book Nine Perfect Strangers and said, but everybody left with what they went with. Like, everybody left with something that they were trying to leave behind. And everybody found something
That
and
is a
some form of
really
enlightenment.
Interesting.
And I'm like, your mum, bang on.
Your mum's just like put it spot on. Like, that is amazing.
So the observation was, they were all being microdosed under their, and it looked like they all went crazy for a moment. But actually, they all left with a message that was deeply meaningful and personal to them. And so Mum's reflection was spot on.
That's amazing.
And I obviously had that conversation with her before I went on the retreat. But that is why, coming back to your first question, how was it? It's quite difficult to explain because everyone's experience that I shared that energy with in that room, and I know for a fact that who was there was supposed to be there. Yeah. We were all there to share the journey together. And if the dynamics had been different, we would have had a different experience. So I'm very grateful for the amazing 9 other people, 8 perfect strangers, because I went with Amy, that were in that room with me. But we shared a journey together, an experience that was unique and can never be replicated because it was about us being together. And each person's experience was so deeply personal and different that it is quite hard to explain to someone what it's like, because I can only explain what it felt like for me.
And I think that is true of all journeys and all ceremonies.
Hey, for life, right? I have no idea what it feels like to sit inside your head all day, and I can never.
No. And I think that...
but we do tend towards generalizations a lot, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, every moment is so unique. Every moment is so unique.
Yeah. And you know what? If I did it again, I'm sure I would have a very different experience. From a purely practical perspective, we took ayahuasca 2 of the 3 nights we were together at the retreat. And the whole thing was facilitated and the space was held for us by the most amazing people. And that to me is really important when you're looking at doing something like this. Colin and Arianna are beautiful, wise, kind people that just had a way of softly reaching out and holding the space for each of us. And they were supported by other facilitators, Sergio, Dean and Cellene, who are amazing as well at both creating and holding the space. But a big part of ayahuasca and a big part of the journey is in music. And the music really takes you on the ride. And what we found is that our psychedelic experiences, our memories, our recollections, our challenges, our thought processes had similarities on each of the nights because it was influenced by the music, the lyrics, the tone, the beat, the kind of essence that was created in the room.
Which is really interesting because music is obviously vibration. And presumably plants, how I perceive it is if you take a plant, you're coming into oneness with the plant. You're bringing yourself into oneness with the plant. And from what I understand, plants communicate vibrationally. They communicate through vibration and frequency. And so in a way, it's what you're saying to me is it's not just the plant it affecting you, it's actually how the plant and the music are dancing together within you.
Yeah. It's
how the plant is responding in the vibrational conversation with the music, which is the traditional way. The Icaros and the medicine songs are part of medicine.
And it's creating the whole experience is so you can speak to the medicine. So you don't feel out of control. Again, I can only speak from my experience. My experience was very calm. It was very serene. I hardly moved. I felt so deeply relaxed and at ease that I actually felt like I stopped breathing. I was just like, hey, I don't even need to breathe anymore. I'm so chill. I'm so chill down here in this universe that I've created for myself. And it was, you are interacting, you're playing, you're kind of dancing with the medicine through the music, through your body. Your thoughts are conscious. You remember. You can ask it questions. You can consciously play with it and kind of challenge what's coming up with the medicine as well. So it's a very conscious journey that you take.
What would you say to people that are like, well, that's just a trip?
Yeah.
What makes it medicine, I think, is the question I'm asking.
I guess
and I know you're not an expert in this. I
No.
just want to know from a participant's point of view.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things to note, right? I am not here promoting that everybody should take ayahuasca. It's a deeply personal journey, decision. You know, let's face it, it's illegal in this country, right? It's illegal. It's classed as a narcotic, I guess. It's an illegal substance. So I'm not suggesting that everybody go out and do this. It does involve, for me, the special experience I had was because of Colin and Arianna and the team and the environment they created, the music, the atmosphere, the people, the thoughtful way the whole retreat was curated is hugely important to feeling safe and secure in that environment. So I'm not telling everybody. In fact, it's such a deeply personal decision. This is something that people should not think about lightly. It's not a recreational microdosing mushroom Saturday night event. This is something that can bring up trauma. It can release trauma.
Do you mind me asking if it brought up trauma for you?
It didn't bring up trauma for me, but it brought up deep emotion.
Okay.
If, like, when I reflect on what the word trauma might mean and trigger for people, and without going into too much detail, the deep emotion it brought up for me was grief, because it's been a big part of my life over the last few years. And I had a vision that just, wow, brought up all the waves of grief in me. And that vision made me sob, and I was sobbing and blowing my nose, which is all part of the purging that medicine can sometimes do for you. Sometimes you're sick, which I was only very sick at the very last minute of the 2 days. But for me, it was blowing my nose, it was crying, it was yawning. Those things are all releasing things and energy from your body.
And did you,
as you're having
did
the
you
thoughts,
feel it releasing the energy from your body, the energy of the grief?
So you know, I felt intense pain. So it was painful as well. Like I had intense pain in my blissfulness, my intense headache, pain in my teeth, pain in my jaw, pain in my throat as I was thinking different thoughts, but deeply relaxed at the same time. It sounds quite weird. I couldn't have moved if the place was on fire. I was so deeply relaxed. But what the grief part that came up for me was just deep pain in my heart, and I was crying and blowing my nose and just feeling exhausted by it. And then all of a sudden I had this realization and this thought, I'm feeling this pain because of love. It's not possible to feel grief without an equal or greater measure of love. And I was actually imagining my aunt and uncle's pain, and this is what I was channeling, because they're deeply sad because my cousin died, and my dad and another cousin, and I could just feel their pain so intensely. But in that moment I felt the love.
And do you feel like that was the medicine, or you a part of your like higher self or higher awareness?
I believe we were working together.
Right.
The medicine helped me feel it so intensely, and then feel that love so intensely as well. And I joined the two together. And so even though I was crying, I was smiling. And I just had, and then that made me cry even more, was just this overwhelming feeling of love and this appreciation that you don't feel grief in those depths unless it's equally a gesture and a feeling of love. And so that gave me a huge amount of comfort and release. And, you know, I almost talked to them in that moment as well. So that was, I guess, my most deeply felt emotion that I had over the 2 days was connected to that. But it was one of pain that was then balanced out with calm and bliss and love.
And would you say it's because you were calm you were able to access that pain? Do you think the calm was... The reason I'm asking is because I actually I had an interesting message about the breakdown of what medicine is from a totally different point of view. But what was being said was that it's not medicine unless it has these 4 stages. It has to have intention. It has to have a clearing or a purification. So the role of a medicine, it can only be medicine if there is something that is released and purged to get you to a 0 point. And then it is also only medicine if a new thing is brought in to replace what was there. And so there is like a renewal or a restoration stage, and then there is an integration. And if those 4 stages are not there, the guidance that I was getting is it's not actually it is not being used as a medicine. That's how we can use plant as food and then plant as medicine is those 4 stages have to be part
and that's
of it.
exactly what I believe that we and using and being guided through the process as we did was exactly those 4 stages. So I guess everybody is interested in the bit in the middle, right? The psychedelic experience. What did you see? What did you hear? Like,
which I do want to hear about.
Yeah.
Like I want to know.
I'll come back to that. But actually, what everybody that was there reflected on was the intention piece, the setup, the prep, the taking care of yourself before you go in, listening to your body. What is the intention that you have while you're there is super important to how you then, what you bring into that space and that environment. Then there is the actual working with the medicine, the purge, and as I've said, the purge and the recognition and awareness of what comes up. The purge and release is, you know, I did it through crying and blow my nose. Other people purged a lot through, but it's interesting when you purge with ayahuasca. You know, we all get given a bucket at the beginning and a loo roll, and you imagine that it's going to be some kind of exorcist moment, but actually what you're purging is just the tea. You're not really being sick. You're just bringing the tea back up.
Okay.
And I'll come back to that and how my session ended. But then one of the most important parts of it is the integration. And it's the conversation we had together as a group the next day, our sharing of our experiences, getting the wisdom from Colin and Arianna. And we learned something in each other's stories that we were able to integrate into our own. And it would bring up an acknowledgement of what we had felt, or, you know, something to think about and take away with us. And, you know, that integration process doesn't happen in that moment. I'm going to be integrating for a long time what I saw, felt, heard, and how I then bring it into my kind of waking conscious life as well. It doesn't, you know, just snap change and you walk out a different person, although some people can. But I want to walk out a different person. I want
to
feel
live with
like
more consciousness.
I feel that I have an awareness about the changes that I want to see and feel in my life that I need to make, that I kind of knew before. But, you know, like everybody in life, you're waiting on somebody else to come in and on the white horse and wave the magic wands and all the analogies of all the fairy tales at once and make it right, when actually the only person that can do that is me. And sometimes you just need a light shone on that in different ways. And one of those different ways can be using plant medicine to unlock that or help you unlock that at a deeper, subconscious level. So yeah, those 4 stages are the experience of taking ayahuasca for me.
And tell me about the restoration stage. Tell me about like when you're out of the purge. Then what?
So I'm probably still in it,
Okay.
to be honest. But when you're actually
not I mean
so
out
you
of
mean
the trip.
in the,
I mean like
whilst
after the crying and the
Yeah.
grieving, then what happens? What's the rewriting bit
So
that happened to you?
So for me,
Yeah.
the restoration part in that particular moment,
Yeah.
because I had various stages, there was
Yeah.
like chapters of a book to the experience over the 2 days. In that phase, it was the aha moment of the pain I feel is love. And just sitting with that and kind of holding that and smiling at that and almost kind of having a little haha moment to myself and feeling contentment within that moment that I had that epiphany. And then with that, the crying stopped, the nose running and blowing stopped, and I lay back down and got peaceful again. And so that was, I guess, the integration of that thought in that moment. And I guess sharing it with people is part of that integration as well.
And then what happened?
Well, right at the very beginning, because I know you want to hear about the kind of psychedelic experience. So for anybody that's curious, it's not like a kind of acid LSD mushroomy trip where, the walls might be breathing or the cat turns into a donkey or whatever might be your experience of, psychedelics, where your outer world changes. I never felt out of control at any time. I felt very safe. I felt very secure, but I just wanted to keep my eyes closed and I wanted to be still and peaceful. And so for me, the psychedelic experience was very internal. It felt quite physical as well as visual. And so you take the medicine, which is like a very thick molasses almost. It's quite difficult to kind of gulp down. And to me, it tasted like a kind of burnt licorice. Some people said it tasted like burnt grapefruit, that kind of not terribly pleasant kind of taste. And I have no idea how long it takes to kind of, you start to feel it, other than it could have been 10 minutes or it could have been an hour. But you journey overnight. So everything is done by candlelight, by a beautiful roaring fire. So you can kind of make out shapes and distinctions of things in a room, but it's not brightly lit. So you're very able to really kind of close your eyes and just relax and go deep into your inner world. And so the experience when it started for me, I felt like my face started to grow and elongate and almost split in half, where I felt like my face was 3 foot tall, up and down. And then it started to expand left and right as well until my whole face just felt like it disappeared. And I didn't want to touch my face in case there was nothing there. So it was like this really weird thing of like, don't touch it, it's going to feel weird. And I couldn't anyway because I couldn't move. But I just felt like my whole spatial awareness, if I had my eyes closed the whole time, but if I had my eyes open, my kind of 2 foot by 2 foot circumference of my fisheye lens that you have in life of the things that you see and are aware of, all of a sudden I had a 360 vision. And I always think back to Joe Dispenza and his, we see 1% of reality. Imagine if we just, used our cognitive abilities to see more of the quantum, to see more into that kind of time-space reality that we only see 1% of. And it felt like I could see everything, certainly more than the 1%. So not only did my vision feel like it expanded, but then I just completely disappeared at this point. and my breathing became so shallow. I didn't feel like I had a face. The message was, you don't need one. It's not who you are. And then I just became one with the visual that I was experiencing, which was this beautiful purples, orientally type images that just kind of gently floated in and out. I felt like I was on a breeze with this. It's really difficult to explain that I was up in the clouds, up in the universe. Everything was dark but warm and beautifully serene, and it was like I was floating on this cloud, and the message that I got was oneness. You are one with this. This is the universe. And Fee, we're letting you see this. We're letting you see behind the curtain and enjoy it and come along and just spend some time here. And so I did.
What's interesting to me is you're talking about like essentially losing all awareness of your body.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is it's like, well, what is the part of you that is then going on that journey? Because you're talking very sensationally about breeze and, you know, experiencing in a sensational way. So presumably your life force is what is going on that journey,
exactly.
rather than
your life physical force,
rather than the physical senses. It is the life force energy that flows through the physical senses to experience the body that is then in this experience of total oneness.
Yes, exactly. And it felt beautiful and serene and playful and blissful and magical. Really, it was a fantastic experience where I just felt I was riding this kind of really beautiful wave of energy.
What would you say, having now known ayahuasca intimately in this two drinking, what would you say she would say life force energy is?
It's everything. And it's everywhere. And there's no distinction between us all. It's a oneness.
And what would you say you got from that experience?
A beautiful experience. Perspective. I feel like I was able to see something that I wish everybody could see. Appreciation because of that. You know, from a more personal perspective, I guess I got the message that you know, you are enough. You know, it's you've got what you need to thrive in life was the message that I got. Enjoy it. You know, there isn't a more beautiful message than that,
really.
There
really isn't.
And you know, as I say, it's really difficult to explain. I know how it felt, and I some of, you know, the things are difficult to kind of put into words, but that energy that I felt was just an absolute oneness and vastness as well. And, you know, sometimes we worry about the smallest, minutest of details of something. And then what I felt was this, you know, kind of time space reality that we construct, but it's not actually what it is. Like, it's something else. It's something bigger than we can imagine. It's something greater than any of us. And anything that's in this time right now, because this moment's past, right? And that moment that I had back then is past, but that feeling, that energy, what I saw, that kind of all-encompassing, it's almost like space holder that we're all floating around in, that's existed long before us are here right now and will exist long after this moment. So I guess perspective and appreciation are kind of two of the things I took away. I've not been asked that before, so I hope I'm making sense. People probably
You are
think I'm
making
really.
sense.
People probably think I'm being
what you're
really
saying is
crazy
so-
right now.
What you're saying is so beautiful.
I'm trying to present it in a way that doesn't sound like I'm crazy and it sounds accessible, but at the same time, this is not something that I'm saying everybody should go out and do. It does involve a little bit of appreciation of some of the things that I'm talking about at the same
I've
time.
never been called to ayahuasca, and I have deep respect for the plant medicines. But what?
Yeah, you feel called to it, I think, when
And I think
it's
if you
ready.
feel called, it's the right
Yeah.
thing. And you shouldn't do it if you're not feeling
No.
called, because you don't go into a pharmacy and be like, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that.
Not unless you have serious problems, but that's another conversation.
Like that will come to that serious problem.
And it's not like going to the bar going, oh, well,
medicine is you treat a medicine for because she's called you in my world. But what I do always struggle a little bit with, even in the medicines I've taken, is because I've taken loads of drugs. I've had similar experiences when I was younger taking drugs, and so there's a part of my left brain that still, even with the deep reverence and respect I have for medicine, that still goes, I think you can have those experiences when you're high in general. And one thing that I'm just curious about is like how to define the difference.
I'll come back to what you said about the 4 stages.
So it's your intention.
When you're out, when we were all out
difference.
clubbing,
Yeah.
or when,
like that's what I mean. Like
late
I found
80s
God
era.
on a toilet in Gran Canaria once because I was like, oh, this toilet is. No, I was high on ecstasy at Gran Canaria Gay Pride, and I was like, this toilet is connected to the floor, and the floor is connected to the earth. And then I like had this whole like oneness experience of like realizing that the toilet was God. Which was a life-changing experience. And I'm not trying.
God is a DJ, right? So everyone's had those experiences.
Exactly. I'm not discrediting plant medicine. I'm just so curious in this conversation, because it's such an important conversation, about what actually what's the difference, between God is a DJ. Maybe there isn't a difference, but
maybe there isn't, right?
Do you see what I mean?
I'm not the expert, but my intention in 1989, 1990 was very different to now, and I think, but a lot of let's be honest, there are similarities. That collective. I was actually just this morning saw some Insta reels from some footage from the late 80s, early 90s of people dancing, and the energy is incredible. There's not a phone in sight. No one's looking at the DJ. They're all 100% in the moment, lost in the music, feeling the vibration together, feeling the energy together,
in oneness,
and having, excuse my French, fucking fun.
Yeah.
Right?
And in the joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And their hearts are open.
Are open. They're, everything is just living in that moment.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Right? And did that change lives in that moment? Yeah. And
do we seek it in those unceremonial ways? I have a theory that teenagers and young people are meant to go through a rite of passage with medicine, and very unconventional theory, but like they're meant to have their ecstasy rites. They're meant to discover their life force energy and the meaning of the universe and have these rites of passage. And if they're not given in a healthy, safe way, they're going to be with a bottle of white lightning in the park.
Yeah, done their
seeking
their
too, ecstasy
but
rites.
It's that guided process that I feel makes the difference. You're being held in a safe space. You're being guided,
and somebody holding your energy,
creating the environment to unlock what at that time is important to you, and it allows you to go deeper than you can on a nightclub floor in Ibiza. and you're seeking to understand the pain as well as the pleasure. So when you're in those kind of recreational environments, you're seeking the high, but in the plant guided experiences, you're also seeking to understand the why.
That's beautiful.
And the how. And I think to me that feels like the main differentiator, but the end result can be the same. Oh, I feel like I've hit a nerve with you there.
I love that. No. I love what you're saying. What I was thinking about was I actually looked up this week the root meaning of the word medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And the root meaning is the art of healing. And to heal means to be whole. And then I was like, I'm going to look up art. And art, like the R word is really the R part of art in Sanskrit or in German. I'm trying to remember the exact roots of it, but it was like, it means mindful. So it means to be mindful. And I'm like, maybe it's only medicine if you're mindful, because what you're describing here, like the range of experience isn't that different from being in a club in Ibiza when we're younger, in terms of like how it opens up your range.
A lot of people felt the pain part. Like my experience was
or the pain. You know, like I've also seen people in drug things go into their deep trauma stuff. So I don't think the range is that different, because I think probably drugs open and medicines open you up in different frequencies in different ways. But what you're describing to me is that, like, it's the mindfulness that makes it the art of healing, that makes it medicine.
Yeah. And you're working with the plant to find what needs to be healed.
And that's the intention.
Yeah. That's the intention, and it's the integration.
Do you mind me asking, and you're very welcome to say no, what your intention was?
My intention was to, I guess, understand more about who I was. You know, I was asking the questions about, you know, basically, am I enough? What am I on the right path? Am I, you know, we've talked about this previously, but, you know, I came from very corporate background, and I'm really passionate about wellness. Talking about things like this cracked myself wide open to the world. And I feel like sometimes I was living in two camps, and do I have a place and a voice that is as authentic as I believe it is, and do I have a place to share this? And I was seeking just a little bit of validation that I am on the right path and that I am okay. And the message I got is, you are okay. You're doing just fine, Faye. And, you know, I'm 50 next year, and part of my year of being 50 is to work on my mind, body, spirit. And this was the spirit part of appreciating who I am, what I'm curious about continuing to learn and grow. And my intention was to just crack open further and see what dropped in.
And I think you really did fulfill that intention. Like when you speak about it,
I didn't really eloquently say that.
So beautiful. Like when you speak about
kind
it,
of learning to love myself was my intention. It was to be okay with going, you know what, chicken, you're all right. Or as my dad would say,
speak about it, you can hear that love. You can hear that love. And I feel like
I spent a lot of years in self-loathing, and I don't want to go back there. Who does? No. I won't go back there. It's impossible, because I've worked too hard on everything to do that. But that last little bit of self-love, self-awareness, appreciation and confidence was just kind of lacking a little bit. So my intention was to give myself a little boost.
Well, I feel like your intention was fulfilled by the way you're speaking.
Thank you.
And the energy that comes off you when you speak about it. I know I've been slightly devil's advocate in this interview, but
I don't feel like that at all. I want to be challenged.
Well, I wanted to be, because I was aware that there will be people listening that are going, you know?
And I just, again, want to double down on the fact that this was my experience. I have touched on a tenth of what I felt, because it is deeply personal. Some people that I was there with and shared time with had deeply traumatic realizations, experiences, physical pain, a lot of purging. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of deep work that was done. But as a group, it was beautiful, because by the time we all came to the last night and we had the cacao ceremony, and Colin and Arianna put on some music, and I thought, gosh, they have such beautiful voices and are beautiful musicians. I wonder what we're all going to like let loose to. And it was the full moon as well, so we were all a bit crazy. And we all just went for it, and they put on Whitney Houston, Lionel Richie, Michael Jackson, and we all just jumped around and danced around like it was 1990 with just not a care in the world and no kind of self-consciousness. And when the music stopped, we just had to stop and hug whoever's next to us, but truly from the heart, and just stop and be peaceful. And it was so beautiful. I can't explain. And there was no drugs that night, just some cacao. But the energy was there. The trust was there between everybody, and everybody had been on that full journey together. And everybody that had the traumatic experience the first night had a beautiful the second night. Or we all, let's bring it back to the start, like 9 perfect strangers, walked out with a lesson and a appreciation that we took home with us that we hadn't walked in with.
Thank you for being so vulnerable and honest and
Thank you.
Poetic in your sharing of this very sacred experience.
Thank you so much. May the life force be with you.
May the life force be with you. We hope this conversation has topped up your life force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the life force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the life force be with all of